Coqui-san, welcome for another round of storytelling thoughts, all kinds of story mechanism thinking. We need to put things into perspective here. I hope you all having a great day. I hope you're having a great time. I hope you're enjoying these videos. Please let me know in the comments section below if you're enjoying these types of videos. So hit the like button, subscribe if you want more of this stuff too. If you wanna get the notifications and all that I'm on. So today's talk is foreshadowing. And this is a very interesting storytelling mechanism. It's in existence since time immemorial. But basically, the way foreshadowing works is it's something that happens in the story that kind of hints or alludes to something that's going to happen later, but you don't notice it. You know what I'm saying? It's not very noticeable unless you're like really top tier story reader and you know all the mechanisms inside and out. And basically, it's something that many of us writers implement into our stories. Some with great success and some not with great success. But foreshadowing is a very tricky thing to utilize when writing, and something that all writers have to be very careful, myself included, because I love foreshadowing. I love to try to implement it, but the thing is that you do not want to force it, and that's always been one of the major problems with foreshadowing is forcing it, because sometimes you can be too on the nose, or it could be so oh, excuse me. Oh, excuse me. It could be so uh, unassuming that when the reveal happens, either people will be like, "Oh, I saw that coming a mile away," which is true, or they'll be like, "Wait, this was never mentioned in the story." And then when you point it out to the story, when you try to point it out, where in the story, be like, "Well, how am I supposed to know? That's not obvious." And it's a very tough one. It's very tough mechanism to really harness. It's very difficult to utilize, um, and it requires a light touch sort of thing. It's not something you want to revolve your story around. Never ever revolve your story around foreshadowing. It doesn't work. Believe me when I tell you, it doesn't work. Because when you try to do it on purpose, it comes off unnatural. And that's the thing about foreshadowing. It just happens. It can happen naturally, and you as a writer wouldn't know it, or you do have a plan, but you have to know. Um, gotta really know your story. You gotta understand it inside and out. Like you have to be able to um, know far better than you could ever imagine. Because the thing about storytelling is that um, we don't know what we're writing. We have an idea of what we're writing, but we don't know what we're writing until after we finish the draft. And then we start going back and start working on the drafts. And then that's when the things like foreshadowing start happening. But if you try to do that on your first draft, um, you're going to find yourself having a hard time writing completely. Just writing in general because you're trying to be perfect. You know what I'm saying? You're trying to achieve some kind of perfection in which you put this set piece here and then you need to connect it later down the line, but then you start struggling to make the connection because everything in between, the way you write it, contradicts what it is that you're foreshadowing and what you're trying to reveal. So, my advice is to be extraordinarily careful not to do that. Don't do that on your first draft. Just write everything that is in your head, and then when you do your second draft, then you can I wouldn't even do it in the second draft. I would say maybe around the third draft, like maybe the third or fourth draft, when you get a good clear picture of your story, you know exactly what your story is. After the second rewrite, and you get rid of all the junk and everything, and it becomes more focused and refined. Then you could start doing the foreshadowing, and you could be able to insert it where you think it could be inserted, or if it looks obvious that there is a foreshadowing involved, a scene that's foreshadowing an event that you wrote later down the line, reinforce it and lean into it. because believe me, foreshadowing is one of the best mechanisms out there in writing. And one such story that really put foreshadowing to such efficiency, such high efficiency, is Babylon 5. Babylon 5 by J. Michael Straczynski. Um, he's you probably may know him from having written Spider-Man comics, uh, and also having written and done screenplay for a couple of Ghostbuster cartoons, the real Ghostbusters. Not the filmation Ghostbusters, the better one. but um, his storytelling, he's very close to the sleeve. Like he keeps his whole entire route close to his sleeve. Um, and when it comes to pulling off foreshadowing, he actually pulled it off in spades. You know what I'm saying? And it's pretty impressive how he built the world out, and he was able to get you know characters and creatures um, to be foreshadowed in later events. Like you wouldn't even suspect it until it's too late. But then you remember. Oh yeah, I remember that happened back there. I don't want to get too deep into spoiler territory, but I'm trying to think of a good foreshadow he pulled off. Um, oh yeah, and it won two primetime Emmy awards. That's pretty cool. Let's see here. What did it win for? It doesn't say. Oh, I pressed the button. It was like, it's taking me to all over the place. All right. IMDb. Mm, that's all right. It won two Emmy awards. That's all we gotta say. That just tells you all you need to know about Babylon 5. Out of 18, along with 18 wins and 26 nominations from other awards. So that just tells you how amazing it is. So one of the best foreshadows I could think of. Um, Let me see. What was a good foreshadow? It wasn't the shadows. Revealing the shadows. I think one of the good foreshadows, foreshadowing, ain't that funny? Foreshadowing shadows. I think was the revelation of what the shadows were doing to the people, so to speak. Um, uh, yeah. See, because people were disappearing, especially if they went to Zahadum, and nobody really knew the fate of everybody. But there were hints along the way from in episodes, not just from like Kosh or a few psychics, but like alien races who were probably running away. I think it was it the Drazati? Which race was it that got wiped out by a disease, by a phage? I forgot the name of it, but a whole entire civilization, the entire race got wiped out by what became a curable disease, but it was too late, and they all died out into total extinction. I think that foreshadowed um, well, what the shadows were doing to people. Um, there was also characters like Mr. Morden who were acting as advocates, but that wasn't much of a foreshadow. Oh, see, there we go, the Techno Mage. They just showed the Techno Mage played by Michael Ansara, who was in Star Trek. He played a couple. He played a Klingon in Star Trek as a guest star, but they guys like him were running away, and nobody really knew what it was that they were running away for. It was just rumors and murmurs. And once it became clear who they were running away from, it was like, oh. And then when you saw what they were doing, then it all made sense why a group like the Techno Mages were running away. And like, oh. And then you find out, and then you find out a little bit more but during that revelation, there was more foreshadowing. You end up finding out who their opponents were. And I'm not gonna reveal that. You need to watch this show, because this is a show you have to really follow completely. Uh, you know, and it was just well executed. That that now you saw how big the stakes truly were. Like, you knew the stakes were big, but you didn't know how deep the stakes really are. And that's what makes this such an amazing series, when they could do that kind of foreshadowing at such a grand scale. Um, you know what I mean? And he was able to, and J. Michael Straczynski was able to hold on to that very tightly, because remember, this is television, and in the U.S., network executives really meddle a lot. You know what I'm saying? They always interfere, and he was able to, push, keep them at check. I wouldn't say push them away, but more or less keep them at check. He knew how to get rid of characters. He didn't hesitate to get rid of characters either, which was amazing. And sometimes some of those characters who were gotten rid of, all of a sudden you're like, oh, oh, that's why they were gotten rid of. Uh, so yeah, man. There was let's see here. Well, no, it wasn't the fall of Clark, was it? No, no. It wasn't the previous president. No. What? I'm trying to think of another good example of foreshadowing in Babylon 5. Another good one. Um, no, that one is a Chekhov's gun. I was thinking of the machine that the an old lady used to help heal people, but she weakened herself. Um, oh, the spiritualisms. Yeah, because of the spiritual nature that J. Michael Straczynski put in there, very impressive how he handled that. Uh, a lot of the stuff that you learn from the lore of those lores foreshadowed um, events to come as well. Particularly the Vorlon, no, not the Vorlons, the Minbari, their religious caste, spoke. They didn't just speak of it like in the form of tarot or revelation, but of experience, because they were because they're the oldest of the young generation, the current generation, spacefaring races. They were like the first one of the next generation to go out into space and explore, and they saw crazy things, and that's a good foreshadow right there, because you were given that little nugget of knowledge that they were the first ones, and there was a reason why they ended up the way they ended up, going into the current setting of Babylon 5, and what they've been preparing for, and what they've been trying to warn, but they weren't really warning anybody. Actually, I want to retract that. Because when we were introduced to Minbari, we found out that they were actually in hiding. Like, they closed the borders. You know what I'm saying? It was total border closure. Anybody who entered in there, they snuff them out. If you're lucky enough to even, if you're lucky enough. But they kept themselves hidden from everybody. Everybody knew who they were, you know what I'm saying, except for the humans. And everybody was telling the humans, stay away. And we find out why why that is from the very beginning, because well, not from the very beginning. We find out why as the story goes along, because we find out that not only were they the oldest of the new generation spacefarers, the current generation of spacefarers, but they saw some crazy things, and they put that into prophecy, their own personal prophecy. Man, and everything ends up coming around full circle on the payoff. So yeah, there's another good example of foreshadowing. Why is it that why does the Minbari hide closed off their borders, and then finally came out to reveal themselves, because they needed to find out about the humans. They learned about the humans, and there was something strange about the humans, and they needed to know about the humans, and that's when everything started falling into place. But they were explaining why it was, along the way, through pieces, nuggets, lore, and so on, why they had to steer clear of dealing with everybody. They were hiding, and they're the most powerful of all the spacefaring races. So it's pretty amazing. So those are a couple of examples of foreshadowing and how you can ramp it up into something big, and magnificent when well done. And it's very well rewarding when you pull that off. You know what I'm saying? When you pull off the foreshadowing, it's very rewarding, not just for yourself but for the reader as well. It keeps your readers engrossed. It keeps your readers in the game. They want to read more, and every time you get readers to say, "I want to read more," you're gangbusters. It's now the success ball is in your court, and you got to try and build off on that, and keep your readers there. Keep them wanting more. So yeah, that's foreshadowing, and that's Babylon 5. I highly recommend Babylon 5 if you want to learn more about foreshadowing. Pay attention to all the little things that goes on. They're very every little scene. Well, except for TKO, but that's another story. They got some good episodes, they got some bad episodes, but the point is that if you want a good example of foreshadowing in your writing, Babylon 5 is it. Definitely would recommend you go for that. So yeah, that's all I got, guys. Thank you all for joining me again. Comment, like, subscribe if you enjoy this stuff. I'm always learning. Just so you know, I'm always learning in the ways of writing, and gladly help share my thoughts with all of you who are also learning, and we can learn together and become better writers. All right. So, all that said, I wish you all a good night. Buenas noches. And always human aside. Ooh, I'm sorry about that.